These are 10 easy but really effective sound design tips. I'll be using Diva because I just released a preset pack, but you can use whatever synth you want. By the way, all the information about the preset pack is going to be in the description. It's currently on sale, so don't miss it. First of all, the tuning oscillators. This might be the most common one. I mean, when you use unison voices, you will probably use the tuning knob, because that way you create a lusher and bigger sound. But you don't need unison to achieve this. You can use just the oscillators that you have, even if you are using just two. The idea is to fine-tune one different from the other, or maybe with one you go positive and with the other go negative, but by small cents. I mean, technically, when you go over 50 cents, you are already on the next semitone. Now, this is great to create a specific kind of sound, but what I like to do is to actually map the tuning of one oscillator to something like the velocity or even the aftertouch. That way, depending on how hard I press a key or how I program it, the effect will be more present and the sound will be more dramatic. It's perfect to add variation between each note, not only with volume and filtering, but also making some notes more unstable than others. And again, this is a more dramatic effect. Now, speaking of the tuning, the second tip is actually detuning with purpose. I mean, the first one was also detuning with purpose, but now we can go more extreme. For instance, I love to make some pads where one oscillator is going to be detuned all the way to 1 or 2 semitones below. The dramatic effect is different and yet is still effective, because even if you're playing a minor scale, going 1 semitone below, it will transform it into a harmonic minor and whatever else. So it's a dissonance that's still going to be in scale with the rest of the sounds that you're playing. Next up is to actually use reverbs in a creative way. Maybe not every reverb will let you do this, but I know a few that can, and of course the one on Diva also can. And by the way, the sound of this played reverb in Diva is excellent, I love it. The idea is to go with the diffusion all the way down. Also play a bit with the size and the decay, and that way you will be creating some sort of multi-tap delay, but that's not actually a multi-tap delay, it's something a bit different, more clicky, more about textures. This is a unique kind of sound that then you can mix with another regular reverb to get a unique texturized background sound for, I don't know, some keys. You can use it for leads, pads and everything, but with keys you are taking advantage of the plucky part of the key, so the effect will be more noticeable. This next tip is the easiest one and is the most effective one too. All you have to do is subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. I mean, it's really only 2 clicks, and I make videos trying to share knowledge about different topics of music production and synthesizers. Now, as before the reverb I talk about detuning, I almost forgot to talk about dissonance. But now not as detuning, but something else. I'm talking about the cross-modulation options in synthesizers like the Jupiters or the Alpha Uno. At least that's what I'm seeing here on Diva. The difference between cross-modulation and your typical FM, I think it's that cross-modulation is actual frequency modulation and not phase modulation. But I'm not 100% sure, please let me know in the comments if that's the case. The thing is, this is a more dissonant kind of auditory rate modulation. which when you use it subtly, you can get some unstable kind of effects like we did at the beginning. Or you can go to specific values and change the tuning of the overall synth so it keeps being in key. But I like to use cross modulation for more extreme results, even by modulating it. Like for instance to create some sci-fi alien spaceship kind of effect. By the way, I'm going to make a special selection of the best presets from this new preset pack for Diva, and I'm going to give them away for free to my members and also my patrons. Consider joining one of those platforms so you can support my content. Thank you so much. Now let's go back to the more musical stuff. And actually let's go back to the basics. One of the most basic things you can use to make a synthesizer feel more organic, more alive, is to program velocity for the amplitude or the filters. I mean, we have controls for that here on the envelopes. But you can go to the next level and actually program velocity for other things rather than filters and amplitude. For instance, I have this classic Moog style sound. And besides using velocity for amplitude and for the cutoff point of the filter, I'm also using it for the level of the noise. The noise will make things even brighter, and because of that, will be more impactful. You can use the same logic for other type of effects that will make the sound brighter, more distorted, or just bigger. As for instance the feedback amount, or the cross modulation, or even the frequency modulation of the filter. Next tip is all about making better evolving kind of sounds. I mean, we all have been there. We try to make an evolving sound, but the only thing that we do is to modulate the cutoff point of the filter with an envelope which has a long attack. So to make it better, you can use the same logic as we did with velocity, but now we modulate different stuff with the envelope. For instance, the FM amount of the filter. We can even use this envelope to modulate the amount of resonance of the filter, and as it's also increasing the FM, the higher it gets, the grittier and more noisy in a good way it will get. Of course, to make things even better, you can use an LFO and apply delay to it so it doesn't start at the beginning. Now, speaking of that, the next tip is to actually modulate modulators. In other synthesizers, it's even easier because you can just drag and drop a modulation into the parameters of another modulator. But here in Diva, we can actually modulate the rate and also the amplitude of the LFOs. So continuing with the last tip and every other tip before that, we can use different parameters, as for instance the envelope, to make the rate of an LFO start going faster and faster, even getting to audio rate. And as this is an LFO, the audio rate modulation is a little bit more... And as this is an LFO, the audio rate modulation is actually dissonant, which brings us back to the first tips. It gets even crazier when we use the same logic to control the rate of the LFO. A really common effect, especially on electronic music, is to actually use a sawtooth way to modulate the amplitude and or the cutoff point, and use something like the mod wheel or pressure again to modulate the rate, giving you this very nice effect that I quite like. Now Now the next tip is even easier than the rest because it's all about you taking your time to explore the different types of filters that you can find. I mean, this is not only about Diva. I believe most of these big synthesizers with a lot of different features will have more than one type of filter, and many of them will be some sort of analog emulation like ladder or diode and so on. The thing I like about Diva is that the differences between each filter is very noticeable, because you have filters with a lot of character. So sometimes you are building a sound and you are not quite convinced on if you like it or not, and maybe just by simply changing the filter you will notice a huge difference. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but combined with the last tip, using FM for the filter with high resonances can lead to very interesting sounds. And when you combine that with key tracking, you can actually get another tone. Honestly, the feedback and FM are my two favorite knobs from Diva. Now let's go to a more specific kind of tip, and is to actually use the arpeggiator for sounds that are not arpeggios. If you set up 3 or even 4 octaves in a really fast rate and you use delay and reverb, you will get this very nice sparkle kind of sound, which is more like ear candy or sound effect rather than an arpeggio. If you like the sounds that you hear today, consider buying my preset pack for Diva. Let me know which one is your favorite sound design tip that's easy but very effective. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time, and bye bye.